Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So yesterday we saw what are the things that we are going to learn. We went through the syllabus and we did discuss the books that we would be using. So today we will start with the actual syllabus content. But of course, we are not going to immediately jump into any techniques. We need to first learn about pre-processing of the data because that is very important. I know most of the students, even by the end of the MSc, don't like pre-processing, but believe me, when you are doing some actual analysis, many a times your 70 to 80% of the time and energy is spent in pre-processing, and the actual modeling part comes only for at most 20 to 30% of the entire job. Okay, so pre-processing is very important. For that, we would start with the very basics. I know what I am going to talk today. Most of you know already. But we have to start from scratch so that we don't miss any important basic points. So I would start with what are the types of variables that we know. Okay. We always talk about random variables. So what are the types of variables that we are aware of? So generally, we define two major categories of variables. One is discrete and other is continuous. Right? These are two major categories of variables, discrete and continuous. So, how do I define if a given random variable is discrete or if a given random variable is continuous? You must have studied this in probability theory. If the set of possible values of a random variable is either finite or countable, then you call that random variable as discrete. Whereas, if a set of possible values for a random variable is uncountable, then you call it as continuous. So, I know it is very easy to understand that if I have a binary variable, it's discrete. If I am talking about say height or weight, which can be measured technically up to as many decimals as you want, then it becomes continuous. But if suppose you have some random variable, which takes values in the set of all rational numbers, then even though the number of values is infinite, it is still countable and hence it would come under the discrete category. So discrete doesn't necessarily mean integer. Okay. What we are generally thinking is whenever we say discrete, we go to integer. Not just integer, most of us go to positive integers. But that's not the only case. Okay. There are some discrete doesn't actually equal to integer. Okay. There are some other things which can be included in discrete. As I said, non-positive integers are of course there. Similarly, even say rationals, they can be there. Okay. So one quick example can be if I have a random variable which takes values between say values from this set 1 by n belongs to n. So if I have a random variable which takes values from this set, then since this set is countable, I would have to call that random variable as discrete even though they are not integer valued. Okay. Now, even in discrete, we don't stop. When we say discrete, we still go further. So in discrete, we go for two categories. Ones which take finitely many values, others which take infinitely many values. Of course, when I say infinitely many values, it actually means countably infinite. Okay, it actually means countably infinite. Now, this is quite easy to understand. Okay, so whether the set of possible values is finite or infinite, it's quite easy to understand. Another categorization of discrete random variables can be whether it is count data or whether it is categorical data. Okay, because generally discrete means you are either counting something or you are representing something. So discrete has to be either count data or categorical data. Now, what comes under count data? Your typical examples. Number of people visiting an ATM in 1 hour. Number of vehicles crossing a particular bridge in 1 hour. These are all examples of count data. When we go to categorical data, we know that in categorical there are again two possibilities. You have either ordinal categories or you have nominal categories. Okay, you have either ordinal categories or nominal categories. What do you mean by ordinal and nominal? Ordinal categories are basically consisting of those categories which can be ordered. Typical example can be, your grades. So grades can be actually ordered. So I have F as the lowest grade, then you have, I think your batch does, yeah, it has P, then C, B, A and O. So these become ordered categories, so it is known as ordinal. And nominal categories are those in which there is no order. So if suppose I am talking about say favorite colors for a person. So there is no order. I can't say okay, this person's favorite color is red, this person's favorite color is say black. So the first person is in some sense larger. First person's favorite color is in some sense larger than the second person's favorite color. I can't say that. So those come under nominal categories. Okay. Now, why I am talking about categorical variables? Because many times when we are dealing with real data, many of the variables might be categorical. For example, if we are talking about human beings, gender becomes a categorical variable. It's actually a nominal categorical variable. It's not ordinal. You can't order. Similarly, the languages, mother tongue of a person becomes a categorical variable. Whether the person is a patient or not, yes, no, that becomes a categorical variable, and so on. Okay, so there are many variables which generally come in the form of categorical variable, and unfortunately we so far most of the things that we have learned, they are from continuous variable things. We can't really do similar things on categorical data. For example, take something as simple as descriptive statistics, because as soon as we lay our hands on data, the first thing we should do is exploratory analysis, which involves drawing some basic graphs, computing summary statistics and so on. So as soon as descriptive statistics come in picture, if I have categorical variables, I am stuck. Fine, I can compute mode. I can compute which category is, for majority of the respondents, which category is say chosen. That becomes a modal category. But I cannot really compute mean. Okay, you might convert categorical variable into a number kind of variable, by giving the numbers to categories. So in favorite color, I can say suppose red is 1, and then black is suppose 2, and blue is suppose 3, green is 4. Something like this I can do. But I know that these numbers are actually arbitrary. I know that if something is black, that doesn't mean it is twice as big as red. Okay, why? Because this is 2 and this is 1. Similarly, I know that difference between red and black does not really need to be equivalent to difference between blue and green. When you say you can handle continuous data, these are all the assumptions that you are making at the background which we don't realize. Okay. So for categorical data, this is not an option. Okay. Hence, we need to come up with some different techniques. If it's an ordered categorical data, we can perhaps use at least median and mode. So ordered or ordinal data, we can use at least median or mode. But for nominal data, I can compute only mode. I cannot compute even median. Okay, you can't say blue is somewhere in the middle of red and black. Now I know some people might be thinking that you can actually convert blue or any other color for that matter to numbers, RGB coding. But yes, I am not going into those many technicalities. In general, for a layman, yes, blue, green, they are just different colors. A person doesn't associate any numerical values with it. Of course, in your data analysis problem, if you feel it is necessary, you can go for that. But in general, we don't do that. So, okay. So I have ordered categories, then I can find median or I can find mode. But if I have nominal categories, I can't even find median. See, something so simple as mean or median cannot be computed if I have categorical variables. Another typical example of categorical variable is the level of pain felt by individual people. Okay, so generally, when you have things which cannot be measured, you resort to other ways. So, same thing. So, amount of pain that a person is undergoing cannot actually be accurately measured. So, what doctors do is they routinely ask a patient, how much is the pain today? On the scale of 1 to 10, how much is the pain today? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it 9? And so on. Okay. Now in level of pain again the same question arises. The level of pain is actually on the range 1 to 10. But that doesn't mean that when a person says today my pain is 10 and yesterday it was 5, that today's pain is exactly twice as yesterday's. Okay. We don't even know whether the gap between 1 2 is similar to the gap between 9 10. It need not be. Okay. As a result, you cannot really handle categorical data sets by the same way in which you can handle continuous variables. Okay, we need to do something more to handle them. In continuous variables, of course, you can compute summary statistics, you can draw box plots, you can draw histograms, you can draw scatter plots, pairwise scatter plots, which are also known as matrix plots, and then move ahead. Okay, so remember, you have different types of variables: continuous, discrete. In discrete, you have count data, categorical data. In count data, again, you have to in categorical data, again it can be either nominal categories or ordinal categories. It doesn't have to be same. Okay. Now another important point to be remembered while we are talking about these things is you should be able to clearly differentiate between what is a regressor variable and what is a response variable. A regressor variable might also be called as predictor variable. Okay, these two are kind of equivalent words: regressor variable or predictor variable, and a response variable. Now you must be thinking that we are not that dumb that we don't know how to differentiate between regressor and response. I know you all are good, but still there can be some tricky situations where it may become difficult to define what is a regressor and what is a response. Or sometimes you may end up forgetting that a response is created from some other variable, and if you input that variable in, things are going to get bad. Okay, so I can give you an example. I had given Kabaddi data, I think. Okay, yeah, wait. Football, it's easy to understand. So if I consider say football or cricket, something like that, things are generally easy to understand. Cricket is further easier. Okay. So if I am considering cricket matches and I am recording, for every team the runs that they have scored. So it's their own score, then runs, that they conceded, wickets which they lost or wickets which they took, and so on. Now, if I give you an Excel sheet with these columns, runs scored, runs conceded, wickets lost and wickets taken, and so on. And then finally my outcome is, so this I will give for both the competing teams. Okay, so suppose I have data for team 1, all these variables, then I have data for team 2, all these variables, in a say particular series, let's say World Cup. And now here you have outcome of the match. Outcome of the match is 0 if T1 fails, T1 loses the match. Outcome of the match would be 1 if T2 loses the match, that is T1 wins. Okay. Now, if I give this data set to you and I say, okay, try to develop a model which can help me predict outcome of a match. Okay. So what I ideally expect is you use the variables from T1 and T2 and try to come up with a rule. Now, what we have in T1 and T2, runs scored, runs conceded, wickets lost and wickets taken. Now, if we compute runs scored minus runs conceded, you actually get a perfect fit, because if runs scored is greater than runs conceded, then of course that party is going to win. That team is going to win. Okay. But I cannot really use run scored minus run conceded as a variable, because it's not really a regressor. It's actually just another form of response. Your response variable is just a recoding of this difference. So from this difference you have just computed an indicator variable. If this difference is greater than 0, you give 1 as a value to that indicator function, and if the difference is smaller than 0, then you give value 2 to that response. So basically these are used in construction of response. So in such scenarios you have to be very careful, because if you simply use some standard algorithm that is available in the software on this data, software would come up with this as the best predictor, runs scored minus runs conceded. Okay. Now, so it is very important that you know the relationship between regressor variables and the response variables. Don't mix. That's why I am saying that even if it seems very easy to distinguish between regressors and response, it need not always be the case. Here in cricket example, it was easy to understand because cricket is something that we grew up watching. But if you are looking at some other domain, it may not be that obvious and you might end up making the same mistake, that is using the response in other form as regressor, and you would unnecessarily be happy of having a good fit, but it would really not matter at all. Okay. So yesterday we defined what is meant by statistical learning. We also defined what is meant by data mining. Couple of things. The examples that we discussed yesterday all involved making computer do something which human being already does. But of course that's not the only aim of statistical learning and data mining. We want the computer to learn extra things also. For example, if you have a huge data set, finding patterns in it on your own may be difficult. Okay, but you might train an algorithm which can come up with patterns which would make sense to you. Let me give one example. So it's an example from numbers. I did show you some episodes of numbers in multivariate analysis. So this is again an example from numbers. So I will give 2 examples. So one is there was some attack, kind of like a terrorist attack at one place. On the next day there was attack at some other place. After a few days there was attack at the third place, and so on. So they were trying to understand how the attacker chooses the targets. Okay. Now for a human being it is difficult because it may involve lot of variables. So for a human being, even if all the variables are available in front of him or her, it is difficult to detect the patterns and to see which variables are actually contributing to the site being particularly attractive for the attacker. But a computer can identify some such patterns. It can come up with some important variables or some such patterns which can give me probability of the attacker attacking some other places. Okay, so this is again data mining where whatever human beings have learned is not enough. So you need a computer to understand the patterns. Another example was there are some thefts going on in a city, and most of the times the thieves actually run away with some high-end antique materials. They don't really go for even cupboards and closets, but they go for showcases and they pick up antique items, and those items have a lot of value. So the thieves can benefit even while carrying very less load. Okay, so these police were trying to figure out how does that thief come to know that this particular family owns a good antique piece, because not every home is going to have good antique pieces. So how do they come to know which homes to attack? Because there is nothing like where you declare all your antiques and so on. So later, after searching a lot and with lot of data crunching and all, they came to know that most of these clients, actually I think all of these clients means all of these people who were actually whose houses were attacked by the thieves, all these people, because they had antique items, they were insuring those antique items. If you have some object, some antique vase, say, which costs 2 lakh rupees, of course you don't want to take any chances. You take an insurance policy so that if it is damaged or if something happens to it, then you can get some money to replace it or something like that. So then they realized, after doing a lot of crunching, that all these houses were buying insurance from one particular company. So that was probably the database that the thieves had, and they could decide from that database whom to attack next. Okay, so the computer can actually detect patterns which are not easily discernible to the human eye. That is another aspect of data mining. Okay, so most of the times the data mining exercise is divided into two categories. It is either classification or a regression. So classification means your response variable is going to be discrete. So you are going to just predict in which class does a particular observation belong. So classification is discrete response, and regression is actually continuous response. So if you are in a scenario where your response variable is continuous, you generally call it as regression. Okay, otherwise it is classification. So when you come up with a problem, when someone hands over a problem to you, the first thing you should do is check the variables, which of them are discrete, which of them are continuous. Even in discrete, which are count, which are categories. Even in categories, which are nominal, which are ordinal, and so on. Okay. Then try to understand whether the response variable is continuous or discrete, because depending on that you have to decide your course of action. Some of the techniques are completely different for classification and regression. So as a result, if you mis-specify the type of response variable, you might end up in a bad situation. Okay. Again, you must be thinking, isn't it too easy to decide whether the response is discrete or continuous? We know how to differentiate between discrete and continuous variables. Again, whatever has been given as response variable by the person who handed the data set to you need not always be the response variable. You might want to modify it for your own convenience, and in that process it may become continuous from discrete, or it may become discrete from continuous, and so on. Okay. In fact, we couple of years back, so at the time of 2019 elections, one group of students did a project on election prediction in our department. So there we had similar issue. So the data that we had consisted of all the details about a candidate, and the response was just binary, whether that candidate won or whether that candidate lost. So technically response was binary, but we realized that modeling the binary response was taking lot of times, and hence we defined first a continuous variable. So maybe something like try to predict proportion of votes first that every candidate is going to get, and then you rank the proportion of votes, and then you see which candidate gets the highest proportion of votes, that candidate can be declared as winner. So here, even though my final aim is to predict the class, that is whether a particular candidate is a winner or a loser in an election, I may have to approach it, we had to approach it through the continuous response case. So we first try to predict the proportion of votes, which is a continuous variable taking values between 0 and 1, and from that we defined this final response win or loss. In fact, deciding that final response win or loss is also not completely easy, because, and in fact another reason why we went for the the continuous response instead of categorical, there were couple of problems in implementing categorical classification algorithms on that data. See, if you just use any algorithm, it would give you prediction 0 1 for every row. So here for every candidate. But we know that there are certain constraints, that one constituency can have at most one winning candidate, everyone else is gone. Similarly, every constituency should have at least one winning candidate. Okay. If there is tie, then also they declare one of them as winning. Okay. So these facts are not taken into consideration by a usual classification algorithm. So if you just run a classification algorithm by taking binary data, it may happen that you get more than one winner in a particular constituency, and some constituencies may end up with no winner. So that was another, and in fact important result why we switched from categorical response to discrete, the count proportion of votes, continuous kind of response, because we realized that it makes more sense. Otherwise you can't actually predict winners and losers. Okay. Hence, identifying whether your problem is that of classification or regression is a very, very, very important step. Okay. In regression, yes, we deal with continuous variables. This regression, the word regression here doesn't have a direct relationship with regression analysis that you studied. Okay, because in regression we study logistic regression also. So logistic regression would go into classification scenario. This regression simply means that your response variable is continuous. Okay, so this is how you decide whether a given variable is whether a given problem is a classification problem or a regression problem. Okay, so what are we going to do? Given any data set and a problem statement, we would first try to understand the problem. We would try to understand each and every variable involved in it, not just the statistical information of it. Of course, we are now going to decide whether a variable is discrete or continuous. That's the statistical part of it. But you should have domain knowledge also. You should know from where that variable is coming, so that you can identify whether the categories, if they are there, whether they are nominal or ordinal. Secondly, if you want to change things, for example, if you want to change your continuous response to say categorical response, if you know variables, you know how it can be done. At least you will have some idea of how it can be done. Okay, so knowing the variables is important. Then we go for summary statistics along with graphs. So you can define histogram, you can draw histogram, you can draw scatter plots, and so on. So these will be summary statistics. And Then you can, for categorical data, summary statistic would simply be mode, and if it's ordinal categorical, it would be median. And we, so once we have these basic things, we can actually proceed with the analysis. Again, what happens is many a times having the variables that you have is not enough. In fact, machine learning folks call their regressive variables as features. So feature extraction is another important term. So I may not be happy with whatever variables I already have. I may want to have some additional variables. I may want to construct some additional variables. So I may want to extract some features from that data. Using the given variables, I can probably I can probably define some other variables. So they would be known as new features generated. So feature extraction is also important because your final outcome is only as good as the input variables. So if you understand every variable completely and then define new features, it would be very good in terms of getting good final results. Okay. So this feature extraction is another term that you should know. Now, okay, so you have classification and regression, but even from the statistical point of view, there are two objectives of any studies. Two means one of them is more prominent. So the study can be for prediction. Okay, the study can be for prediction, or the study can be for inference. This is important. Okay, so inference. So what do I mean by this? So sometimes your interest is in getting more and more accurate predictions, whereas at some other times you want to see what are the reasons behind whatever is happening. So that comes more into the inference part. Okay, so let me try to explain with some examples. So suppose your aim is to increase sales of your product by say 2% in coming 1 or 2 months. Then you have different input variables and then you have different output variables. So here output variable can be sales because we want to increase sales. So output variable can be sales, amount of sales or rupees received by sales. And you are trying to give a statistical model using whatever data sets are available with us, and what we try to do is, okay, we try to come up with some model where tuning the input parameters I can get as large response as I want. Okay, because response variable is sales, so I want to increase that. So here, for example, it may involve something like spend more time on advertising on TVs and less time on advertising on radios, something like that. Okay, some such suggestions may be given by a prediction model. Okay, because simple thing is say regression coefficients can tell us this, but it may not tell us why this particular thing is going to work. So here our aim was prediction, whereas at some other places we may be interested in more of why of it. Okay, for example, if you are modeling say COVID-19 data, whether a person dies or not, of course you might be interested in predicting the probability whether a given person is going to die or not, but ideally that probability is not going to be of much use to me, because at least as of now we have decent number of hospital beds, so doctors don't have to prioritize. So even if they know, okay, probability that this person is going to die is 90%, still they would like to keep their efforts on. They don't want to go by probabilities. But still we would be doing analysis of COVID-19 data with comorbidities. Why? Because we would like to see which factors contribute more to the morbidity. So that's where the inference part is. Okay. So you want to explore, okay, why a particular variable is contributing to that person, or increasing the probability of dying. So that part would come under inference. So inference is where you try to understand what is happening and why it is happening, whereas prediction is where you are happy if you get some prediction. Okay. So given any study, we should first decide whether it is mainly a prediction based exercise or is it mainly a inference based exercise. So inference is you try to explain whatever you have done so far, and prediction is trying to predict without bothering much about why the prediction model is working. Okay. So this is another important thing, that is, given any new data set, you should try to check whether it is prediction or whether it is inference. Okay. I think I'll stop here.